Hello, welcome to the second summer Mishna podcast, Masechet Sukkah, whatever. Today we'll be doing Bezrat Hashem, the second and probably third Mishnah of the first Perek. The second Mishnah begins as follows. It's one who builds a sukkah under a tree. It's as if it was built b'toch habayit, inside the house. The assumption being that you can't build a sukkah inside of a house. That's not kasher. It has to be under the sky. That's the point of the schach, is to separate between the individual and the sky. So one who builds under a tree, so he is outdoors, but there's a tree above the sukkah, so that is not kasher. It's if it's within the house, and then it is pasul. One cannot sit in such a sukkah, fulfill the mitzvah. Sukkah agabe sukkah. Let's say you have one sukkah on top of another sukkah. Two stories. One sukkah, another sukkah. So you have the frame, schach on top, then another frame, and then schach on top of that. So you have two sukkot, one on top of the other. Sukkah agabe sukkah. So the Mishnah says as follows, according to the first opinion, Tanakama, ha'elyona kshera, the first sukkah, the elyona, the top sukkah, the one al on top of, the elyona on the elyon is kasher, va'tachtona psula. But the bottom sukkah is pasul. The simple reason being that like we just said, that if you have a sukkah with something on top of it, a roof on top of it, a tree on top of it, that's pasul. So similarly, if you have a sukkah with a sukkah on top of it, that's also going to be pasul. Then the Mishnah continues. We'll just read the words first, and we'll explain. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, with regards to this case, Im ein diurin ba'elyona. If there's no one living in the sukkah on top, then hatachtona kshera. The bottom sukkah would be considered kasher. Now it seems to be, if you read the Mishnah straight of Machloket, is a sukkah, agabe sukkah, is the bottom sukkah kasher or pasul. The Gemara explains that really everyone agrees that if you have a full sukkah on top of another one, so if it's a full sukkah and people could sit there normally on top of the second one, on the top one, then clearly the bottom one is not kasher, because it's like it's in a house or something. There's a whole structure on top of it. If no one can live in the sukkah on top, then clearly the bottom one is kasher, because whatever's on top of it is just there's some wood on the side, a little bit of extra schach, but that's not a problem. The question is a case where the second sukkah, the one on top, something people could live in if they really wanted to, but it would be very difficult to. They couldn't put furniture or chairs or anything up there. So in such a case, according to the Tanakama, no, it's still pasul. Once you have one sukkah on top of another sukkah, the fact that it's a kosher sukkah on top makes the bottom one pasul. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, if it's very difficult, no one can live there comfortably, then that would still be considered, the bottom one would still be considered kasher, because it's not a real full structure on top of it. Okay, that is Mishnah Bet. Let's move on now to Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Gimel goes as follows. Piris aleha sadin mipnei achama. Let's say again, you're sitting in your sukkah, you have your sukkah there, and then you put on top of the sukkah a sadin, some sort of a cloth, a sheet, on top of the sukkah. So you have a regular sukkah with schach, everything, and then you put this sheet, this cloth covering on top of it. O tachteha mipnei hanishar, or under the schach. You're afraid that if the schach is there, and the schach, let's say, is branches with leaves, then the leaves and pieces of wood are going to fall down from the schach. So therefore you put, instead of putting a sheet on top of the schach, on top of the sukkah, you put it under the schach, inside the sukkah. So those two cases, or the third possibility, the third possibility is that you take a sheet, and this time, shapiris al gabe hakinof, and you take the sheet and you put it on top of the bedposts of the inside the sukkah. So you take a bed, you move it inside your sukkah, and you have 4 bedposts, one on each corner going up, and then you take a sheet and put it on top of it. So basically a canopy. You're on the bed, there's a canopy above you, and all of that is within the sukkah. So in such a case, in all those 3 cases, psula, the sukkah is pasul, you're not considered to be sitting in a sukkah. So either you covered it improperly, you covered the schach, and therefore it's like you're inside a house or under a tree, it's pasul, or you put something underneath the schach, in which case you're not sitting under the schach, you're sitting under that cloth, and therefore it's pasul, or you have this bed with 4 bedposts going up and a covering on top. So again, it's like a roof, so you're not really under the schach. That as well as pasul. All 3 of those cases are considered pasulim, are no good. Aval, but the Mishnah does add, pores excuse me, aval poresu al gabi naklite hamita. If you have a situation where you don't have regular 4 bedposts, you have 2 bedposts going up, what are called naklite hamita, and then in between those 2 bedposts you put a pole or a string between those 2 bedposts, and then 1 string going on, and then you take a sheet and you hang it on top. So picture like a triangle, because you have that 1 string, and then you have the sheet going on top of it, and the person's inside that triangle. In that case, that's what the Mishnah is saying. That is something you are allowed to do, because in that case, even though technically you're covered with something else, you're covered with a blanket, but it's not an ohel. It doesn't make a separate tent. If you have 4 bedposts, right? Picture it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then something on top of it flat all the way across. So that's considered like a separate roof, separate covering. That's pasul. But if you have just 2 bedposts going up, so when you put the sheet over it, it just forms like a pyramid, like a triangle coming down. So then it's not considered a separate roof. It's not a separate roof. It's just a covering within a sukkah. So if you're in a sukkah and you're wearing clothing, those are also covering your body. If you're in a bed in a sukkah and you have a blanket on top of you, that's also covering your body. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're not under the schach. The point is, as long as you don't form a separate structure, which it doesn't, because it doesn't have the 4 sides, so it's not a flat roof-like structure, it's just a sheet on top of you, that does not take away the consideration that you're actually within the sukkah, and therefore in that case it is kasher. Okay, that is the end of Mishnah Gimel.